Mr. Funny by Roger Hargreaves. When you hear this sound, turn the page. Mr. Funny lived in a teapot. It had 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, a kitchen, and a living room, and it suited Mr. Funny very nicely. One day, Mr. Funny was having lunch. He wasn't very hungry, so he only had a daisy sandwich and a glass of toast. "Delicious," he murmured to himself as he finished his funny lunch. After lunch, Mr. Funny decided to go for a drive in his car. Mr. Funny's car was a shoe. Have you ever seen a car that looks like a shoe? It looks very funny. As he drove along, everybody who saw him laughed at such a funny sight. He passed a worm at the side of the road. The worm thought Mr. Funny in his funny car was the funniest thing he had ever seen. He nearly laughed himself in two. He passed a pig in a field. The pig thought Mr. Funny in his funny car was the funniest thing that she had ever seen. She nearly laughed her tail off. Even the flowers he passed thought that Mr. Funny was the funniest thing that they'd ever seen. They nearly laughed themselves out of the ground. Eventually, Mr. Funny came to some crossroads. He didn't know which way to go, so he looked at the signpost. One of the signs said, "To the zoo." "That will be fun," thought Mr. Funny to himself, so he drove his shoe toward the zoo. When he arrived at the gate of the zoo, he stopped. It was closed. "I'm sorry," said the zookeeper. "We've had to close the zoo because all the animals have a cold. They're all feeling very sorry for themselves." "Oh, dear," said Mr. Funny. After thinking for a minute, he said, "Perhaps I can help cheer them up." "Well," said the zookeeper, "it's worth a try." And he opened the gate. Mr. Funny drove into the zoo in his shoe. The first thing he saw was an elephant. It was true. The elephant was feeling very sorry for herself. Very sorry indeed. Mr. Funny stood and looked at the sad-looking elephant. And the sad-looking elephant stood and looked at Mr. Funny. Oh, dear. Then do you know what Mr. Funny did? He made a funny face. Mr. Funny, as you'd imagine, is very good at making funny faces. The elephant giggled. She'd never seen anything so funny. Mr. Funny made another funny face. The elephant burst out laughing. The elephant laughed and laughed and laughed. She laughed so hard, she nearly laughed her trunk off. And she felt a lot better. Mr. Funny went over to the lion cage. There was a lion, feeling extraordinarily sorry for himself. Mr. Funny stood and looked at the sad-looking lion. And the sad-looking lion stood and looked at Mr. Funny. Oh, dear. And then Mr. Funny made the funniest-looking face that's probably ever been made anywhere, ever. Now, you've heard a lion roar before, haven't you? Well, this lion roared too, with laughter. He laughed so hard, he nearly laughed his whiskers to pieces. Then Mr. Funny went around to see all the other animals in the zoo. Oh, dear, what a miserable-looking lot. For all of them, Mr. Funny made funnier and funnier faces. The big brown bear giggled and then burst out laughing. And the giraffe laughed so hard she nearly laughed her neck into a knot. And the hippopotamus nearly laughed himself out of his skin. And the penguins nearly laughed their flippers floppy. And the leopard, well, you should have seen him. He laughed so hard he nearly laughed his spots off. What pandemonium! Mr. Funny, giggled the zookeeper, who'd started laughing as well. Oh, Mr. Funny, thank you very, very much indeed for coming to cheer us all up. Oh, it was nothing, really, replied Mr. Funny modestly, and drove off in his shoe. Later, when Mr. Funny arrived home, he chuckled to himself. Well, he said, that's the end of another funny day. And he parked his shoe and went inside his teapot. And because he was feeling thirsty, he made himself a nice hot cup of cake.
Honey, you're funny. Whenever I feel down, whenever I'm low, all I've got to do is think of you. And you turn my shady sky to sunny. You make me laugh, 'cause you're funny. When I feel it's the end, like I lost my best friend, you come through just like a circus clown. And that frown I'm feeling turns sunny. You make me laugh, 'cause you're funny. It's a pleasure being around you. I'm so glad I found you. Keep them laughing, that's your point of view. And though the gale winds blow, I'm happy 'cause I know I can count on you to see me through. For you turn my gloomy sky to sunny. You make me laugh, 'cause you're funny. You make me laugh, 'cause you're funny. It's a pleasure being around you. I'm so glad I found you. Keep them laughing, that's your point of view. And though the gale winds blow, I'm happy 'cause I know I can count on you to see me through. For you turn my gloomy sky to sunny. You make me laugh, 'cause you're funny. You make me laugh, 'cause you're funny. Oh boy.